Alright, we are done. So, just hooked up the battery. Let's see if it cranks over. Hopefully the battery's not dead. Really strange. To be continued.
Several days later.
Holy crap, everybody. It has been a solid 6 days since I finished the clutch install on this car. I just now got it running. It has fought me. I made no changes to the car outside of the bell housing notch. The car would no start. It would crank, it would start on starting fluid and not run really beyond that. So I had been through this thing top to bottom trying to do some electrical checks. So I'm gonna flip the mic around and I'm gonna walk you guys through everything that I've done. This is gonna be one of those like really old school YouTube videos where the camera's all shaky and stuff, and we're just gonna talk real quick about the fix I did to this thing in case any of you are experiencing the same issue. All right, quick backstory. This car ran flawlessly a few weeks ago whenever I started the clutch job on it. So I sat with the battery disconnected, did the job on there, just had minimal time to work on it, and I go to start it up, doesn't start. And I start combing through all of the normal stuff. So of course I had to make an adjustment to the reference and speed sensor heights. So I made sure that those things were gapped correctly before I finished the job. That's why I notched the bell housing, so it's set at 0.8 millimeters. I checked the resistance on them. They were good. They were newer sensors anyway, so I didn't really have a reason to believe that was an issue there. I did have the flywheel resurfaced, but it didn't seem like the pins or anything, the little screws were messed with, so I had no reason to believe that was an issue. But again, this thing would crank and crank, sounded fine, but just wouldn't fire. I know I have a good fuel pump in this thing, so started going through all of the different checks that we can do, seeing where we have ground, seeing where we have power, and basically, I know a lot of people always want to suggest the DME relay, which is, on the fuse box. So I had no reason to believe that was bad. I checked it, I pulled it out, visually inspected all the contacts in it, no issue there. Sorry about that. I also built a jumper harness, and we put it in there, and got the fuel pump running and stuff like that, and still no start. But again, it would run on starting fluid. So what that was telling me is that the injectors were not pulsing. Now because of that, I also went through the DME plug and tested continuity on everywhere I should have. So pins 14 and 15 on this thing for the injectors. I had no resistance to the injectors, so that means the signal from the computer itself up to one side of the injectors was good, but on the other side I did not have 12 volts. So the way these things work, you should have 12 volts on both sides of the injectors with key on. And what sends the signal to the injector is of course the PCM, and it sends it via ground. So what that was telling me was the injectors, the PCM side was good there. I know I had good power on pins 18 and 35, and that comes from the DME relay. So I had no reason to believe the relay was bad, of course, because the computer was coming on. Now, it gets a little tricky. The injectors, the other side of the injectors that should have keyed 12 volt power, that runs right here in this plug. So right up here on position 2, there is a red with blue wire, and it also splices into a black wire. So I had measured 12 volts on key on right here at this plug. But between here and there, I had no power, okay? Measuring from pin to pin on the injector, it seemed like there was resistance. So that was telling me there was some kind of short to ground. So my suspicion is whenever I was doing the bell housing bolts on top, I might have pulled the wrench a little bit too tight and kind of crunched the wiring or something. It's all old and brittle, and I couldn't really you know, everything I was doing testing wise, again, checking power and ground everywhere I should have, resistance on the speed and reference sensors and stuff like that, all of it, led me to believe that I had an issue between there and there. So what I did, I just cut that wire. I have a little bit of a jumper here, and I have taken the black wire and I've let it run into its path, which goes under the dash, but I took and eliminated the injector wiring, the red with blue wires. I cut it back on the injector side, took all the heat shrink off where I could see it, and all of the wiring looked good up until that point. So I cut it, had my jumper, ran into there, so it's clean power. Now I have power on both sides of the injectors. I'll key on, and this thing fired right up. So, a wild ride indeed. But geez, I went through everything on this one.